Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever noticed how sometimes the moment you feel the most lost is the very moment you are being quietly led home? Today's message is titled Lost But Won, and it speaks to a truth your soul already knows, even if your mind has forgotten it. Nothing in your life has ever truly been wasted. Sometimes feeling lost is not a sign that your life is falling apart, but a sign that it is quietly falling into place in a way you cannot yet recognize. When you no longer understand your direction, when the path that once felt familiar disappears, and when the future suddenly looks blurry, it is easy to believe something has gone wrong. In truth, this sense of being lost often appears when you are standing at the edge of growth. The old maps no longer work because you are entering a new territory of your life. Just as a traveler feels uncertain when stepping into an unknown city, you may feel confused when you move beyond who you used to be. This confusion does not mean you are failing, it means you are stretching into something new. Life has a way of guiding you even when you think it has abandoned you. It may take away certain comforts, relationships, plans, or identities that you once depended on, not because you are being punished, but because you have outgrown them. When a child learns to walk, the ground feels unstable at first, but that instability is what builds strength. In the same way, emotional and spiritual uncertainty teaches you resilience, awareness, and self-trust. When your familiar supports fall away, you are forced to discover how strong you truly are without them. Feeling lost also strips you of false expectations and borrowed dreams. Many people walk through life carrying goals they inherited from others, chasing approval instead of purpose. When that life begins to collapse, it creates space for a more honest one to emerge. You may not immediately see what you are being redirected toward, but you can often see what you are being redirected away from, and that alone is progress. There is also a quiet invitation within confusion, the invitation to listen inward instead of outward. When life becomes unclear, your soul starts speaking louder. You begin to question not just where you are going, but who you really are. This questioning is sacred. It brings you closer to your truth than any external success ever could. Being lost makes you humble. It softens your ego and opens your heart. It teaches you to surrender control and trust a deeper intelligence at work within you. If you are in a season where nothing makes sense, where the future feels uncertain and the past no longer fits, do not rush to define it as failure. Stand still long enough and you will feel it. Something within you is shifting. Something new is arranging itself beneath the surface, even if you cannot see it yet. What feels like chaos is often a quiet reordering of your life into a form that matches who you are truly meant to become. What looks like a loss can often be a gain wearing a disguise. In the moment when something leaves your life, it rarely feels like anything good could ever come from it. Whether it is the loss of a job, a relationship, a dream, or a familiar direction, the heart naturally focuses on what is gone instead of what is growing. Pain narrows your vision, and when it does, you measure your life by what is missing instead of what is being added quietly in unseen ways. Yet many of the greatest transformations begin with something being taken away, not because life is cruel, but because it is precise. When one door closes, it is not just a cliché moment, but a necessary movement. Some doors must shut so your soul can stop walking into rooms that no longer fit your spirit. Certain endings arrive to rescue you from futures that would have limited you. At the time, you may not understand why that opportunity disappeared or why that person walked away, but later you realize that what left would have cost you your peace, your confidence, or your growth. The very thing you cried over may have been slowly shrinking you. Loss has a way of sharpening your awareness. It teaches you gratitude for what remains and clarity about what truly matters. It reveals how strong you are when comfort is removed and how resourceful you become when safety is gone. You learn skills you never would have developed if everything had stayed easy. You also learn discernment. You begin to see more clearly who belongs in your life, what deserves your energy, and where you should not invest your heart again. There is also a hidden gift in disappointment. It realigns your values. When you lose something you thought you needed, you discover that you can live without many things you once believed were essential. In that discovery, you become freer, you stop clinging, you stop begging life to look a certain way, and in that freedom, new possibilities appear that never would have had space to enter before. Sometimes what is lost removes a false sense of identity you had built around it. You thought you were that role, that title, that relationship, that image. When it goes, there is fear because you are forced to ask who you are without it. But that question is the doorway to your true self. What seems like collapse is actually construction at a deeper level. In time, you look back and realize the loss was not the end of something valuable, but the beginning of something necessary. What you once mourned becomes the turning point you later thank, because it carved out room for a life that finally fits who you were always meant to be. Every setback carries hidden growth, even when it feels like life has suddenly pushed you backward. When plans fail, when progress stops, and when effort seems to bring no reward, it is very easy to believe you are losing ground. Yet life rarely moves in straight lines, and growth rarely looks like constant forward motion. Often what feels like a delay is actually life strengthening your foundation so that what you build next will not collapse under pressure. Just as a muscle grows by being strained, your character grows through challenge. Without resistance, there would be no development, only comfort. Breakdowns have a strange way of revealing what breakthroughs are made of. When something collapses, it exposes weak areas you may not have noticed while everything seemed fine. You may discover unhealthy patterns, emotional wounds, fears, or habits that were hidden beneath success or routine. In that exposure, you gain the power to heal and correct what needed attention long before things fell apart. A breakdown is rarely the real problem. It is simply the moment the problem can no longer hide. Setbacks also develop patience and endurance. They teach you how to keep going without visible results, how to hold faith when motivation disappears, and how to trust yourself when circumstances no longer support you. This is where inner strength is born, not when life is easy, but when it demands more than you think you can give. And yet, somehow, you find a little more strength every day. That is not an accident, that is growth in motion. When things fall apart, you also learn adaptability. You learn how to reshape your dreams, reinvent your plans, and approach life with flexibility instead of force. The version of you that survives disappointment is more creative, more intuitive, and more resilient than the version who only experienced success. Failure makes you smarter. Struggle makes you wiser. Hard seasons make you deeper. You start seeing challenges not as enemies but as teachers. There is something powerful about surviving something that once threatened to break you. On the other side of difficulty, you often discover a new level of confidence that no achievement could ever give you. You realize you can endure far more than you imagined, and that knowledge changes how you walk into the future. You stop fearing uncertainty because you have already lived through chaos and come out stronger. In time, what once felt like a cruel interruption becomes a meaningful turning point. You see how the delay redirected you, how the failure redirected your focus, and how the pain redirected your purpose. You recognize that the breakdown was not the end of your story, but the moment your story gained depth, strength, and truth. You were never meant to remain who you once were, no matter how familiar or comfortable that version of you may feel. Growth is not a betrayal of your past, it is a fulfillment of it. Every experience you have lived, every lesson you have learned, and every challenge you have survived has quietly been shaping you into someone wiser, stronger, and more aware. Yet many people cling to old identities because they once worked or once felt safe. even when those identities no longer fit the person they are becoming. Change can feel frightening because it asks you to release certainty and step into the unknown. But the unknown is often where the truest version of you is waiting. Just as a child cannot stay in the body of a child forever, you cannot remain emotionally, mentally, or spiritually where you began. To stay the same in a world that is always changing is another form of pain. You may find yourself outgrowing old habits, relationships, or dreams, not because there is anything wrong with them, but because there is something new awakening inside you. When your desires change, when your values shift, and when your inner voice grows louder, it is a sign that evolution is taking place. Growth can be uncomfortable because it dismantles illusions. It shows you where you have been settling, shrinking, or pretending. It removes masks you once wore to survive, and not everyone enjoys seeing themselves clearly at first. But clarity, though confronting, is healing. The more honest you become with yourself, the more aligned your life becomes. Little by little, you stop living a life designed by fear or expectation and start living one shaped by truth. Becoming who you are meant to be requires courage. It means choosing authenticity over approval and purpose over familiarity. Sometimes this will disappoint others who are comfortable with the old version of you. Sometimes it will confuse people who do not understand your growth. But you were not created to remain small so others could feel comfortable. You were created to expand into your highest capacity for love, wisdom, and strength. There will be moments when you miss your former self, the innocence, the simplicity, or the certainty you once had. Yet even in those moments, you carry forward everything that truly mattered. Wisdom replaces naivety, peace replaces fear, and understanding replaces confusion. You do not lose yourself in growth. You uncover yourself. Each stage of your life is just another layer being peeled away, another truth being revealed, and another limitation being outgrown. The person you are today exists only because of the person you used to be, and the person you are becoming will one day thank you for having the courage to evolve. Peace does not arrive when everything in your life becomes perfect. It arrives when you stop fighting the life you are living right now. Resistance is one of the greatest sources of suffering, not because life is always difficult, but because you argue with reality instead of allowing it to teach you. When you tell yourself that the present moment should be different than it is, you create inner tension. You may be physically in one place, but your mind is somewhere else, wishing, regretting, fearing, or reliving. That mental conflict drains your energy and steals your peace. Accepting where you are does not mean giving up or settling for less. It means recognizing this moment as the only place from which true change can begin. When you stop wishing you were somewhere else, you free your mind to become fully alive here, and in this awareness, something powerful happens. Clarity replaces confusion. You begin to see what is actually in your control and what is not. You stop wasting energy trying to force outcomes and instead focus on shaping your inner world. Letting go of resistance also softens your heart. You become less reactive and more responsive. Instead of fighting circumstances, you start asking what they are trying to teach you. That shift in perspective can transform pain into insight and frustration into understanding. Life may not immediately change around you, but something changes within you, and that inner change alters how you experience everything else. There is a deep freedom in acknowledging, "This is where I am right now," without judgment or self-blame. The present moment does not demand perfection. It only asks for your presence. The more present you are, the less power worry and regret have over you. Your breath becomes calmer, your thoughts become quieter, and your emotions settle. This is not because your problems disappear, but because you stop letting them control your peace. When you accept your present, you also build trust with life. You stop seeing every challenge as an enemy and begin seeing it as a messenger. You understand that even discomfort has purpose, even delay has meaning, even uncertainty carries an invitation to grow. Acceptance opens your mind to new solutions that were invisible when you were busy resisting. The world inside you becomes gentler when you stop trying to escape it, and from that gentleness comes strength, patience, and hope. You realize you can move forward without being at war with where you stand, and when you make peace with now, you give yourself permission to step into what comes next with clarity and courage. You do not draw experiences into your life by hope alone, but by the condition of your inner world. What you consistently think, feel, and believe forms an invisible signal that shapes the situations you encounter. When your inner state is dominated by fear, doubt, or resentment, life often seems to mirror those emotions back to you through difficulties, misunderstandings, and missed opportunities. This does not mean you are being punished. It means you are in harmony with a certain emotional frequency, and life responds by offering experiences that match it. When you live in constant worry, your mind is always anticipating danger, so even neutral situations begin to look like threats. Your choices become cautious, your confidence weakens, and your vision narrows. Over time, this inner hesitation creates outer limitations. In contrast, when you consistently practice gratitude, trust, and self-respect, you notice life opening in unexpected ways. You become more aware of opportunities, more receptive to connection, and more willing to step outside familiar patterns. Your attitude subtly changes your actions, and your actions quietly change your results. Many people spend their lives begging for change without realizing they are reinforcing the very patterns they wish to escape. They want peace but carry anger. They want success but remain attached to self-doubt. They want love but operate from fear of rejection. The outer world reflects what the inner world rehearses. This is why transformation does not begin with circumstances, but with consciousness. You cannot expect a different life while speaking to yourself the same way every day. When you shift your inner environment, you start noticing that small changes create large effects. A calmer mind invites clearer decisions. A grateful heart invites better connections. A confident spirit invites stronger action. The change is not magical, it is natural. Your internal state becomes the lens through which you interpret reality, and what you consistently focus on expands in your awareness. This is also why two people can live in the same environment and experience completely different lives. One focuses on lack and sees only limitation. The other focuses on possibility and finds openings in the same conditions. The difference is not luck. It is perspective shaped by inner belief. You cannot always choose what happens to you, but you can choose the inner posture with which you meet life. When you practice emotional honesty, mental discipline, and spiritual awareness, you begin to attract circumstances that align with the best within you. The world outside eventually reflects the world you have been building within yourself. Letting go of who you used to be is not losing yourself. It is how you finally discover who you really are. Many people fear change because they believe that if they release old habits, identities, and attachments, they will somehow disappear. But what actually disappears is not the real you, only the layers you built out of fear, survival, and other people's expectations. The true self does not vanish when change comes, it emerges. For a long time, you may have defined yourself by what you do, who you are with, or how others see you. You may have believed you were your job, your mistakes, your past, or your role in someone else's life. When any of these things fall away, it can feel as if you are falling apart too. But in that blankness, something powerful begins to happen. You are forced to meet yourself without labels, without titles, and without approval. And it is there, in that quiet space, that you begin to understand your worth beyond performance. Losing the old self often feels like confusion because you no longer recognize the person you are becoming. But that unfamiliarity is not danger, it is discovery. You are meeting yourself in a new form. Just as a caterpillar does not look like a butterfly while it is changing, you may not look or feel like your future self while you are transforming. Growth rarely feels graceful while it is happening, but it is always purposeful. When you release outdated versions of yourself, you also release the limits that came with them. You begin to choose differently, speak differently, and dream differently. What once felt impossible begins to feel natural. What once felt heavy begins to feel optional. You start acting from clarity instead of fear, and from truth instead of habit. There is also freedom in no longer needing to explain who you are becoming. Growth does not require an announcement. It reveals itself through your peace, your choices, and your boundaries. As you grow into your true self, you stop asking for permission to exist and start allowing yourself to become. The pain of losing your old self is real, but it is not empty. It carries with it the promise of fullness. You are not being erased, you are being refined. And the more you let go of who you were supposed to be, the closer you move toward the person you were always meant to be. Pain is not a punishment, and it is not a sign that life is against you. It is a signal, a teacher, and a necessary part of growth. Many people experience suffering and immediately interpret it as a personal failure or a cosmic injustice, but this perspective keeps them trapped in fear and resentment. Pain, when approached with awareness, carries information about your life, your choices, and your inner state. It reveals what is out of alignment, what is unresolved, and what has been neglected in your heart, mind, or spirit. It is not meant to break you, but to awaken you. Every difficult experience has layers of meaning that cannot always be seen immediately. When a relationship ends, when a dream collapses, or when circumstances seem unbearable, the surface emotion is grief, disappointment, or frustration. Beneath that, however, there is growth waiting to occur. You may gain resilience, wisdom, compassion, or clarity. Pain teaches you empathy by allowing you to feel what others feel. It develops patience by forcing you to endure what cannot be rushed. It deepens understanding by showing the contrast between struggle and ease, loss and abundance, fear and courage. Moreover, pain often prompts self-reflection. When life is comfortable and predictable, it is easy to ignore the parts of ourselves that need attention. Pain shines a light on those areas, making it impossible to avoid the questions we would otherwise ignore. Who am I? What truly matters? What am I resisting? In this way, pain acts as a guide, pushing you toward honesty, authenticity, and alignment with your higher self. Pain also builds strength that cannot be obtained any other way. Just as muscles grow through resistance and strain, the soul grows through challenges. What feels unbearable in one moment becomes the foundation for endurance, confidence, and courage in the next. Those who have experienced hardship often discover an inner power they would never have found in comfort. They learn they are capable of surviving, adapting, and thriving in conditions they once thought impossible. Finally, pain connects you to the rhythm of life itself. Nothing in existence grows without tension, without pressure, without some form of resistance. Just as a seed must be pressed into the soil before it sprouts, and a diamond is formed under immense pressure, your challenges refine you. Each difficulty is an invitation to rise, to expand, and to transform into a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your purpose. Pain is not a detour, it is preparation for a life lived fully. Some things leave your life not because you failed or were abandoned, but because they cannot fit the future that is waiting for you. Life often removes people, situations, or opportunities that no longer serve your highest path, and while it may feel painful at the moment, this removal is an act of quiet wisdom. When something exits your life, it makes space for what is greater, more aligned, or more meaningful to enter. What seems like loss is often a form of protection, an unseen hand guiding you toward growth and expansion that would otherwise be blocked by what is no longer suitable for your journey. Often, we cling to what is familiar simply because it feels safe, even if it limits our potential. Relationships that have grown toxic, jobs that have become stagnant, dreams that have outlived their purpose. Holding on to them only keeps you trapped in cycles of frustration or mediocrity. When life forces a separation, it is not punishing you. It is liberating you from a container that can no longer hold your evolving self. The departure may feel sudden or unfair, but it is necessary for you to move forward without carrying unnecessary weight. There is also a profound lesson in discernment when things leave. You learn to see the difference between what is essential and what is optional, between what supports your growth and what hinders it. As you release attachments that no longer belong in your life, you develop clarity and wisdom. You understand that not everything is meant to stay, and that endings can be more important than beginnings because they make room for new possibilities. In this way, loss becomes a teacher, showing you that freedom is as important as fulfillment. Sometimes what leaves your life removes old identities or false narratives you have carried about yourself. You may have defined yourself through certain roles, relationships, or possessions, and their departure forces you to confront who you are without them. This is not emptiness, it is liberation. It is an opportunity to reconnect with your core essence, to step into your true self, and to create space for experiences that are in alignment with your purpose and potential. Ultimately, life's removals are rarely arbitrary. They are part of a subtle orchestration that prepares you for the next chapter, one that may exceed what you could have imagined. What has left is clearing the path, not closing it. The very absence that initially causes pain is simultaneously the opening through which your next growth, joy, or opportunity can enter. By trusting that what departs is doing so for a reason, you begin to see endings not as losses, but as invitations to expand and evolve. What you call lost is often the very thing that leads you to victory, and understanding this requires a shift in perspective. Life rarely unfolds exactly as we plan, and the moments that feel confusing, painful, or directionless are often the ones that carry the seeds of transformation. When you look back on your journey, the experiences that seemed like setbacks or failures frequently turn out to have been the stepping stones that brought you to your greatest achievements. Loss, delay, or uncertainty is not the absence of progress. It is often the hidden preparation for the triumph that is to come. When you feel lost, it is natural to focus on what is missing or what has gone wrong. You may ask, why me, or why now? Yet these questions only prolong the sense of confusion. If instead you begin to ask, what is this teaching me? Or what door is this opening for me? You start to see the hidden value in moments of uncertainty. What seems like wandering or stagnation may actually be alignment in disguise, a subtle redirection toward opportunities and insights that would have been missed had life moved according to your original plan. Feeling lost also teaches patience and resilience. When outcomes are delayed or paths are unclear, you are forced to trust the process and cultivate faith in your own ability to navigate the unknown. This trust becomes a powerful resource, allowing you to approach future challenges with confidence and clarity. Often, the lessons learned during periods of confusion are the ones that sustain long-term success, because they shape character, refine judgment, and deepen understanding. Moreover, being lost can strip away attachments and assumptions that no longer serve you. When familiar paths vanish, you are prompted to explore new directions, rethink old strategies, and redefine what success truly means. In this sense, loss is not an enemy, it is a guide. It forces you to examine your priorities, clarify your intentions, and reconnect with your deepest values. By embracing uncertainty, you create space for creativity, insight, and transformation that would not have been possible if life had followed a predictable course. Ultimately, the experience of feeling lost cultivates self-awareness, humility, and courage. It teaches you that victory is rarely instantaneous, and that the path to meaningful achievement often passes through moments of doubt, discomfort, and unknowing. When you recognize that the periods of confusion and perceived loss are integral to your journey, you begin to see that what you once feared as misdirection was actually the preparation that led you to your true purpose. The very circumstances that seemed like obstacles become the catalysts for your greatest growth.